when people like yourselves turn on television and you see those people taking the knee when they're playing our great national anthem, the only thing you could do better is if you see it, even if it's one player, leave the stadium. I guarantee things will stop. Things will stop. Just pick up and leave. Pick up and leave. Not the same game anymore anyway.
Night where the NFL Players Association is fighting back after President Trump suggested players who protest should be, quote, fired. The executive director of the union, DeMaurice Smith, released a statement on Twitter Saturday saying, quote, "This union will never back down when it comes to protecting the constitutional rights of our players as citizens, as well as their safety as men who compete in a game that exposes them to great risks." The statement follows President Trump's speech in Alabama Friday night, where he criticized players who kneel as a form of protest during the national anthem.
Wouldn't you love to see one of these NFL owners, when somebody disrespects our flag, to say, "Get that son of a bitch off the field right now, out, he's fired"?
Colin Kaepernick has been at the helm of the movement, which aims to propel the conversation and create change regarding racism in America. Multiple players have gone after Trump on Twitter, including Redskins linebacker Zach Brown telling Trump to stay in his place, and former Patriots defensive end Terrence Knighton saying, quote, "I hope more players kneel." NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell also took on the president, saying Trump's comments show a, quote, "unfortunate lack of respect for the NFL."
Does the government work for us or do we work for the government? Tonight, what if the Constitution no longer applied? What if the whole purpose of the Constitution was to limit the government? What if Congress's enumerated powers in the Constitution no longer limited Congress, but were actually used as a justification to extend Congress's authority over every realm of human life? What if the president, meant to be an equal to Congress, has instead become a democratically elected, term-limited monarch? What if the president assumed that everything he did was legal just because he's the president? What if he could interrupt your regularly scheduled radio and TV programming for a special message from him? What if he could declare war on his own? What if he could read your emails and your texts without a search warrant? What if he could kill you without warning? What if Supreme Court justices no longer looked to the Constitution to determine the constitutionality of a law, but rather simply to what justices who preceded them thought about it? What if the rights and principles guaranteed in the Constitution have been so distorted in the past 200 years as to be unrecognizable by the founders? What if the 50 states were no longer sovereign entities, equals to each other, and parents of the federal government they voluntarily constituted? What if the states were mere provinces of a totally nationalized and fully centralized government? What if the Constitution was amended stealthily, not by constitutional amendments duly ratified by the states, but by the constant and persistent expansion of the federal government's role in our lives? What if the federal government decided if its own powers were proper and constitutional? What if the Constitution were no longer the supreme law of the land? What if you needed a license from the government to speak, to assemble, or to protest against the government? What if the government didn't like what you planned to say, and so it didn't give you the license? What if the right to keep and bear arms only applied to the government? What if posse comitatus, the federal law that prohibits our military from occupying our streets, were no longer in effect? What if the government considered the military an adequate dispenser of domestic law enforcement? What if cops looked and acted like troops and you couldn't distinguish the military from the police? What if you were not secure in your person, in your papers, and in your property? What if federal agents could write their own search warrants in defiance of the Constitution? What if the government could decide when you were and were not entitled to a jury trial? What if the government could take your property whenever it wanted? What if the government could continue prosecuting you until it got the verdict it wanted? What if the government could force you to testify against yourself simply by labeling you a domestic terrorist? What if the government could torture you until you said what the government wanted to hear? What if people running for president actually supported torture? What if the government tortured your children to get to you? What if government judges and government lawyers intimidated juries into convicting the innocent? What if the government could send you to your death and your innocence meant nothing so long as the government's procedures were followed? What if America's prison population, the largest in the world, was a cruel and unusual way for a country to be free? What if half the prison population never harmed anyone but themselves? What if the people had no rights except those the government chose to let them have? What if the states had no rights except to do as the federal government commanded? What if our elected officials didn't really live among us, but instead all had their hearts and homes in Washington, D.C.? What if the government could strip you of your rights because of where your mother was when you were born? What if the income tax was unconstitutional? What if the states were convinced to give up their representation in Congress? What if the government tried to ban you from using a substance in your body that is older than the government itself? What if voting didn't mean anything anymore because both political parties stand for big government? What if the government could write any law, regulate any behavior, and tax any event? The Constitution be damned. What if the government was the reason we don't have a Constitution anymore? What if you could love your country but hate what the government has done to it? What if sometimes to love your country you had to alter or abolish the government? What if Jefferson was right? What if that government is best which governs least? What if I'm right? What if the government is wrong? What if it is dangerous to be right when the government is wrong? What if it is better to perish fighting for freedom than to live as a slave? What if freedom's greatest hour of danger is now?
'49ers quarterback Colin. During a campaign rally in Alabama last night, President Trump took aim at NFL players who have refused to stand for the national anthem. The movement was started last year by then San Francisco 49ers quarterback Colin Kaepernick, who was protesting police violence. Since then, other players have knelt or carried out other forms of protest during the anthem. The president said team owners should get rid of those players.
Wouldn't you love to see one of these NFL owners, when somebody disrespects our flag, to say, get that off the field right now, out, he's fired.
This morning, the head of the NFL Players Association released a statement saying the union will never back down when it comes to players' constitutional rights. It's a real hot spot around the league.
Yeah, no surprise, even with Colin Kaepernick not playing, that the protests continue and the union continues to back its players.
In Huntsville, Alabama. Well, before we focus our attention on the 14 games to be played this weekend, we turn our attention to some statements from President Trump that were made last night while speaking at a political rally in Huntsville, Alabama. While addressing the crowd, the president insisted the NFL take a stronger stance on those players that do not stand for the national anthem. President Trump said, quote, "Wouldn't you love to see one of the NFL owners, when somebody disrespects our flag, to say, get that son of a bitch off the field right now?" That is a direct quote from him. Trump went on to encourage people to leave the stadium to protest people doing things like kneeling during the national anthem. There was a statement released from NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell. The NFL and our players are at our best when we help create a sense of unity in our country and our culture. There is no better example than the amazing response from our clubs and players to the terrible natural disasters we've experienced over the last month. Divisive comments like these demonstrate an unfortunate lack of respect for the NFL, our great game, and all of our players, and a failure to understand the overwhelming force of good our clubs and players represent in our communities. So a ton to unpack here with this. This just happened last night, but what were your first thoughts?
Yeah, at first it was like, whoa, wow. I almost felt insulted being a former athlete, but I think the league did a great job in using the word unity. I mean, that's what this league is all about, getting different groups of people together around our game. And the response that Roger Goodell gave, basically talking about that unity and playing on that word and playing on that idea, is what everybody in America needs to hear. And really, quite frankly, the White House could use some of those tips in talking about unity, not divisiveness.
Yeah, look, you're tuning in maybe to get some football, and it's an escape for some people, and they'll tell us to stick to sports. Trust me, we're going to get there. We've got 2 hours to cover. I'll give you all the information. John Timu, linebacker from the Bears, he's going to be promoted from the practice squad. Yeah. We're going A to Z on news in the NFL, but this topic was all I saw on social media, online all day today, and it is an incredibly important topic because he's talking about things that are First Amendment rights for some people. And if he feels like what he said last night is going to scare some people into not doing some things on the sideline, or, hey, maybe I'll stand now because the president feels this way, he's in for a rude awakening, because I really feel like this is going to wake some other people up who were on the fence here, because I know, and you know, Mike Robb, how strongly people feel about this. And I'm not just talking about Michael Bennett or Colin Kaepernick
other people
or Malcolm Jenkins
that have not spoken up yet. They feel the exact same way.
And when they hear these comments and they read these comments this morning, you know what the reaction that they are going to have is going to be. And I know some people are saying, well, that statement from Roger Goodell, we want to hear more. But some people are saying that was pretty strong for him to come out. He doesn't speak for all 32 NFL owners when he is saying that, what he said last night, the president. I guarantee you that.
It's been super polarizing, and I think that it's only going to get more so. But the bottom line is the people who are protesting, they're trying to get people to come together, even though it seems like it's sort of tearing people apart. The bottom line message here is inclusion and equality and justice for all.
There it is.
Twitter, going to the White House is considered a great... On Saturday, Donald Trump suggested NBA player Stephen Curry is not welcome at the White House, following comments by the Warriors player that he'd rather not make the trip. The president wrote on Twitter, going to the White House is considered a great honor for a championship team. Stephen Curry is hesitating, therefore, invitation is withdrawn. Warriors' Steve Kerr, who has also been critical of Trump's policies in the past, says that the team has not yet received an official invite to visit the White House after their NBA championship victory against the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Dem calls for all NFL players to kneel during national anthem. By John Bowden, September 23, 11:47 a.m. EDT. Former Democratic Representative Donna Edwards, DMD, tweeted that she hopes all NFL players kneel during the national anthem on Sunday in response to President Trump's remarks attacking Colin Kaepernick. Edwards, who left Congress earlier this year, called Trump a white supremacist who squats in our White House in her tweet. Trump suggested at a rally Friday night for Alabama Senate candidate Luther Strange, R., that NFL players like Kaepernick who kneel during the national anthem should be fired and fans should walk out. Wouldn't you love to see one of these NFL owners, when somebody disrespects our flag, to say, "Get that son of a b off the field right now," Trump said, adding, "He is fired." When people like yourselves turn on television and you see those people taking the knee when they are playing our great national anthem, the only thing you could do better is, if you see it, even if it's one player, leave the stadium, Trump added Friday. I guarantee things will stop. NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell responded to Trump's remarks on Saturday, calling them divisive and saying they show a lack of respect for the league and its players. Divisive comments like these demonstrate an unfortunate lack of respect for the NFL, our great game and all of our players, and a failure to understand the overwhelming force for good our clubs and players represent in our communities, Goodell said. NFL's Goodell, Trump's divisive comments show a lack of respect. By Brandon Carter, September 23, 9:33 a.m. EDT. NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell fired back at President Trump on Saturday for encouraging league owners to remove players who take a knee during the national anthem, saying Trump's divisive comments show an unfortunate lack of respect for the NFL. The NFL and our players are at our best when we help create a sense of unity in our country and our culture, Goodell said in a statement. There is no better example than the amazing response from our clubs and players to the terrible natural disasters we've experienced over the last month. Divisive comments like these demonstrate an unfortunate lack of respect for the NFL, our great game and all of our players, and a failure to understand the overwhelming force for good our clubs and players represent in our communities. The NFL chief's comments came the morning after Trump told a crowd at a rally for Alabama Senate candidate Luther Strange, R., that NFL players will stop kneeling if fans left games. When people like yourselves turn on television and you see those people taking the knee when they are playing our great national anthem, the only thing you could do better is if you see it, even if it's one player, leave the stadium, Trump said. I guarantee things will stop. Trump also said NFL owners should fire players if they refuse to stand during the national anthem. Wouldn't you love to see one of these NFL owners, when somebody disrespects our flag, to say, "Get that son of a b off the field right now," he continued, adding, "He is fired." The comments came during a broader critique of the league's actions, during which he also accused NFL referees of ruining the game by penalizing players who hit too hard. Today, if you hit too hard, 15 yards, throw him out of the game, Trump said. They are ruining the game, right? Multiple NFL players have fired back at Trump, with one Washington Redskins player telling him to stay in your place following his comments. The head of the NFL Players Association, the union representing professional football players, also hit back at Trump, vowing the union will never back down from protecting players' right to protest. Trump has previously attacked NFL player Colin Kaepernick for kneeling during the national anthem to protest the treatment of people of color in America, suggesting Kaepernick was still a free agent because he wouldn't stand for the anthem.
Hey Charlotte County, this is Charlotte County COPWATCH, and I'd like to thank you for all your years of support through the years. As a result, this channel has grown and allowed me an equity partnership in carmarshal.com. Please take the time to check them out. They help you buy and sell your next car, even have a negotiating tool to save you from the hassle of haggling with multiple dealers. The link is in the description below. Please click and help support and give if you can too through PayPal or Patreon. Thanks again.